Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. It is Thursday, December 19th. It is week 16. It is us previewing the entire slate, us being Patrick Daugherty, Denny Carter, Kyle Dvorchak. We're going to break down the overdue quarterback change in Atlanta to Michael Penix. Touch on the Saturday games, including a 1 p.m. Eastern game on a little network, maybe you heard of NBC, Texans, Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes apparently playing. Other big games of the week, Bucs at Cowboys, also on NBC, 49ers at Dolphins, Eagles at Commanders, and, of course, everything on the line in fantasy semifinals. But we would be remiss if we got into breaking down the games if we didn't hit on the news of the day. Woody Johnson, it turns out, I was stunned when I found out Woody Johnson might not be like an amazing owner. After not making the playoffs for 14 years, never doing anything of consequence during his entire ownership tenure, I was still very, very surprised that he was bad. But you know what I was surprised about, too, is Denny Carter. He comes on the show. He's Mr. Analytics, the dots, the zeros, and the ones. I've never watched a game, blah, blah, blah. Right. All I care about is the numbers. Also revealing, he doesn't play Madden. Kyle and I play Madden. Kyle and I love Madden. An NBC partner for the Madden cast at 1 p.m. Eastern at Peacock on Saturday. Kyle and I like Madden. Denny apparently too good for Madden. And apparently too good for the preferred talent evaluation methods of a literal NFL owner. Accepting and rejecting trades, not a joke, based on Madden ratings. When his son's Brick and Jack said, Jerry Jeudy sucks in Madden. We can't trade for him. We can't trade for him. And NFL owners making moves this way, Denny, but curious. You're not.
Yeah, and now I'm looking strongly into Madden ratings, and I'm seeing that Tyreek Hill has a 98 rating for some reason, even though he's not even a top 10 receiver anymore.
Not even top 10 on his own team anymore.
Right. So, yeah, that's curious. But I will say, and we talked about this on Galaxy Brains, congratulations on the Jets having a quarterback with a 77 Madden rating. They have that going for them, which is actually nice considering how bad some of these other quarterbacks are per the Madden analytics. And you're right. I need to incorporate this into my process of player evaluation.
Yeah, Can I get an idea on Brick and Jack? How are these like Woody Johnson's not young. Like what's the age?
He's not, but they're somehow young.
Okay.
This might be his third or fourth family. No, I'm just kidding.
I was just curious if it's like Pat, you like a 35-year-old man also being like, yeah, they're not good in Madden, you shouldn't do it. And then your billionaire father being like, okay, if you say so. Or is it like a 9-year-old who's like, Dad, this guy sucks at Madden, and the dad's like, oh yeah, like I love my kid, whatever. I own a team, I won't trade for him. And to be fair, he's probably right. Jerry G's not actually that good. So I was just curious what the actual dynamics of this relationship look like.
They seem like they're prep school age, and that they had started attending team meetings, and not a joke, talking about Madden ratings.
Yeah.
And can't say I'd run an organization.
Yeah, I mean, Woody Johnson didn't want to sign an offensive lineman because of his awareness rating on Madden.
Not a joke. John Simpson's awareness rating was apparently not
John
good
Simpson turns out very good. Very good, despite what the analytics say. It's curious. I'm turning into a film bro. I'm being radicalized by this story by The Athletic.
Even the Madden ratings people, listen, man, we don't try to make it up, but we don't know what John Simpson's awareness is. You kidding me? We just gotta try and make the number work somehow. Whatever.
It's just like a coder. Yeah. It's just a guy whose job is I know C++ or whatever, and he's like, I don't. It's a backup guard. What do I care what his awareness rating is? Yeah. Meanwhile, Woody Johnson's grinding the numbers.
Yeah, they aren't calling John Simpson's former teachers. He was always zoned out in class. Never paid attention once. And that's right. I think I hit him with a 72 awareness. AWR as it's known in the parlance. In the parlance, we're known as a fantasy football preview show, and we have games to talk about. We begin in Atlanta, Georgia, where the team making a Week 16 quarterback change to a rookie who will be making his NFL starting debut is pushing to be 2-score favorites against the scarily bad New York Giants, Denny Carter. We went over the gory Kirk Cousins details earlier this week. Now tell us how Michael Penix Jr. might lift up this Falcons offense. Our guys like Darnell, Mooney, and even the dreaded Kyle Pitts back in the fantasy mix for semifinals week.
Was that for me? That was for
It was for you. It's for Denny Carter, Craig Dennis Carter.
Yeah. So just to emphasize just how bad, and we talked about it on Tuesday, if folks want to check that out on the pod. Cousins was 12 for 28 on throws between 10 and 19 yards. So intermediate throws over his past 4 games. Okay. For 0 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, 12 for 28. He has 13 downfield attempts since week 10.
Since week 1 is what I would have guessed. But.
I mean, that it's just crazy how bad this guy has been in the intermediate areas, but then his unwillingness to throw it downfield. So it can't get really much worse. Even CJ Stroud, who's been absolutely horrific on intermediate throws, has been better than Kirk Cousins. Kyle wrote up a good piece on the Falcons going to Penix if folks want to check that on the site. I'm in total agreement with the fact that you have a quarterback now who can push the ball downfield and who can actually put something on the ball and get the ball to where it needs to go. I actually saw some highlights from Penix from the preseason, and you watch the ball come out of his hands. He like throws it to the boundary.
Denny, you're a certified film watcher now.
And then you go, and then, well, I mean, I'm not, but then you say, well, Cousins can't do that. He can't make that throw. So now there will be throws that can be made in this offense that could not have been made before. I will say the lack of play action in this offense is down like borderline criminal at this point.
It's because he can't move. Like, I know sometimes you use it to protect someone, but he literally, as we know, and once he plants his legs, he's like, I'm staying here.
Yeah, and he does. And so more of that, more play action, probably even more like pre-snap motion. And I actually think that like Mooney and London, I don't know, let's get crazy and just throw pits in there. I think these guys can cook down the stretch. Baby.
I do fear. I mean, it's a game that they could easily win with Kirk Cousins still. That like the guy, again, it's week 16 and someone's making their starting debut. I mean, conservative game plan does come to mind is my fear, Kyle. But
yes,
what were the takeaways from your article? Because I mean, clearly it's going to be better. Like because really had reached, there's no way it could be worse. Kirk Cousins could not move, literally could not throw. What were your takeaways? Do they align with Denny's?
Yeah, I feel very much in lockstep with Denny. I think to the point of a conservative game plan, I totally agree. That's what we're going to see. But they had run the most conservative offense for like 2 months. They were among the league leaders in run rate over expected, as in negative pass rate over expected. Every situation in which you would anticipate them to be throwing the football, they looked at Kirk Cousins and said, we won't be doing any of that. And you understood why they were doing it. So, of course, it will still be a conservative offense. But even if they're just a little more aggressive, even if they're just not 32nd in aggressiveness, it would be an improvement. And that's on top of the fact that we do think this is an improvement in quarterback quality, not because like Cousins wasn't good for a lot of his career, but we just talked about it. There's physically nothing left in the tank. So sure, it's risky for them to go to Penix, but what's the downside of it? They have a guy who throws 9.
Penix has no history of lower body injuries, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, none. Like the downside is that they have a guy who throws 9 times as many interceptions as touchdowns in a 5-week stretch. That's what they just had. Like Kirk was terrible, man.
It's true. Kirk too. I've seen some people like, what happened to this guy? And they pull up his like 500-yard box score. And I'll tell you what happened to this guy is that he's very old. And that was the day. Every once in a while,
what do you think?
This is not a joke. I love to play football catch, as it's known. My brother and I will play catch like several times a year. And I could spin it when I was younger. I'll just be frank. And then there was a several-year period where I was like basically to my brother, I don't even know if I could throw it anymore, man. And it's like my shoulder was so hurt. But then at some point I like knocked loose some scar tissue. And I can throw pretty well again. And I think Kirk had like knocked loose some scar tissue at some point, and then it's back with a vengeance. He just cannot throw anymore. Kyle, on the other side, there's been so much sicko volume from Malik Neighbors. But is it enough to trust him as a wide receiver too? Again, everything's on the line. And are we spamming Wan'Dale Robinson? But I mean, the Giants, they just like put on a blindfold and throw a dart at a board and like, which horrible quarterback? Drew Lock.
Yeah.
Can we trust these guys? I mean, we're not trusting Wan'Dale Robinson. Are we trusting Malik Neighbors in the top 24?
Yeah, did like Wan'Dale's agent get a hold of this show sheet? Why in God's name are you playing Wan'Dale? Like he hasn't.
Listen, I'm in a league where I wish I was playing Wan'Dale, to be honest. Where I'm in the semifinals, and it's like, is it still Devon Melee season?
I mean, Wan'Dale hasn't topped 10.1 PPR points since like week 5, right? He is.
His expected points have to be so much higher, though. Like seriously,
He's not good, though. And if you're adjusting his expected points for target depth, they'll not be because or also if you adjust them for quarterback play. Because there's two things.
He doesn't adjust for that. It's PPR. It doesn't matter.
Well, it's even in PPR. 10 points has been his ceiling for 2.5 months. His ceiling, absolute ceiling. And there's obviously no floor because the quarterback play is terrible. He's in a weird situation where he would be a good PPR scam if he had a halfway decent quarterback. But for a guy with a running back level ADOT, he doesn't catch 90% of his passes. And it's probably not his fault. Like we're just talking about how his quarterback trio or quartet now is the worst I've seen in probably a few years, especially over the entire length of a season. Maybe not his fault, but I don't really think it matters. He's totally unstartable. On the other hand, you've had a 10-point floor in every game but one from Malik Neighbors this year, and the ceiling has been mostly coming in Daniel Jones games, i.e. it hasn't hit in a while, but even last week, 80-some yards.
About September, I think the last time he had a 100-yard game.
Yeah, he had 200-yard games in the first month, and I don't think he's hit one since. 80-some, I think 86 yards, and a touchdown last week is roughly a ceiling game as well. The touchdowns are rather unlikely, to be fair, with the state of this Giants team. But if 10 points, even with the bad quarterback, is your floor, you're still starting Neighbors.
I have to say, just real quick, since when does Pat Daugherty care about expected points? That is the most disingenuous thing you've ever said on this show, ever.
No, I was just saying, don't call me insane for suggesting he could be like a wide receiver for him.
I mean, I've said expected points before, and my mic has been cut.
Start swearing. Listen, I'm telling you, there's this league where it's seriously, we're on to Devon Valet. Actually, we're on to Tim Patrick. We had a huge score.
Tim Patrick, I would rank him over Wandale 10 times.
Absolutely, yes.
We had a huge score.
I mean, Tim Boyle should be starting. If there was justice in the world, Tim Boyle would be starting.
If there were justice in the world, of course, Tim Boyle would have never even been in the NFL.
No, he's
having
way
the worst
better
stats in the history of college
way
football.
Better. Yeah, in fact,
you shut your mouth. 45 touchdowns at Mizzou, and you tell me Tim Boyle better.
You can lock it in. Tim Boyle will throw 20 passes in this game.
Drew Lock, one of the best players in the history of our program.
Oh,
and sure, you think that says more about the program than it does Drew Lock.
By the way, talk about an insta injury. Drew Lock, injury. I mean, there's no chance this guy plays more than 12 snaps.
The Giants should have 4 active quarterbacks. He's awful.
They should.
We'll be getting
really
this game.
It's not a bit.
Denny, so yeah, we just laid it out. The offense environment could not be worse for the Giants. Can we still? We can't spam Wan'Dale Robinson. Can we still spam Tyrone Tracy into line?
I don't like this spam talk that way, but yeah, Tyrone Tracy is I think somewhat playable. He has 26 carries to only 10 carries for Devin Singletary over the past 2 weeks. Over those 2 games, he's run about 62% of the routes in the Giants offense. The Falcons have the 5th lowest rushing stuff rate. That's the best I could come up with for an argument to play Tyrone Tracy.
Oh, shut up, baseball guy. You love stuff. Stuff is all you guys talk about.
Yeah, right. If I had a stat about where on the bat he gets the ball, then
don't get me wrong, I hate all that. But yeah, continue.
Anyway,
yeah, go off, King.
I will say, the floor is catastrophic for Tracy here. So just know that.
They are getting Singletary more involved. I thought the logical thing was not to care about the fumbles because the season could not be more over.
No.
It seems like they do care about the fumbles. Looks like Patrick Mahomes is going to give it a go Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern on NBC, Kyle. Even with that being the case, are we still tie-breaking against DeAndre Hopkins and Xavier Worthy in fantasy, especially because Marquise Hollywood Brown is coming back, making what was already kind of a confusing target situation that much more so.
Yeah, I think that's the straw that breaks the camel's back for should you be starting DeAndre Hopkins and hoping that he runs good on a pretty limited route rate, but he does earn targets on his routes. I'm not even going to play games with him this week. He was back to less than half the routes last week, under a 20% target share. He has 1 game over 20% of the targets in his past 6 games. He just doesn't play a lot of football in the Chiefs. And yeah, he earns a disproportionate amount of targets, but that's for a guy who runs 40% of the routes. Yeah, of course he's out there and you scheme him up some looks and they take him off for half the plays. So don't start him. I would have said if Hollywood wasn't back this week, Xavier Worthy ran 86% of the routes. That's a true full-time role and had 31% target share last week.
Season high for catches.
Exactly. Yeah, he set season highs in a lot of stuff, and he had 3 for 30-something and a touchdown on the ground as well. I think one of them was a throw behind the line of scrimmage that could have gone either
People
way.
were so upset about that being called a run instead of a pass, by the way. I still have some people.
Cost people a PPR point, cost people obviously the Mahomes points as well.
I had people like, I'm not even kidding. I had several people in my mentions like pleading with me, like get in touch with Yahoo. I'm like, dude, it's nothing. Like, I'm
Andy
sorry.
Behrens, if you're listening.
Yeah, please get on the phone for Roger Goodell. Sorry, Kyle.
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, if you really need to, the stuff last week was encouraging for Xavier Worthy, but he's been, I was going to say hit or miss. He's been frankly so miss more than hit. And now there's a question on how much we see him just purely on the field because they have another receiver in the mix. I'd really try to, like you said, break ties against him.
Denny, why is the Chiefs offense an instant Death Star with Hollywood Brown? Go.
Good grief. I mean, he better learn how, 4 A-dot, buddy. Because
man, are we throwing any wide receiver 4 Hail Marys with Hollywood or no?
I guess you could do worse. But I mean, honestly, like he could like run like 30% of the routes here in his first game back. And
I think that should be the baseline.
He's the classic
back from the lengthy injury. Like
it's the classic. He probably is not creating his own fantasy value this week. He's just affecting other people's fantasy value.
Yeah, that's right.
Denny, with Mahomes hobbled, the passing game uncertain, can Isaiah Pacheco get into the top 24 for the fantasy semis? He's yet to hit 50% of the snaps. 3 games back.
Right. I mean, what you have really is not a two-headed backfield here for Kansas City. You have a 3-headed backfield. Last week, Pacheco had 28 snaps for Hunt, and then 19 snaps for Samaje Perine, who saw a lot of the route running work. So, like, I struggle to see a path for Pacheco reaching RB2 status without a touchdown or 2. And I think, honestly, like you just said, you're looking for reasons not to play DeAndre Hopkins. I think that's right. I also think you're looking for reasons not to play Pacheco. This game profiles is real ugly for fantasy, and we know that going in. I mean, we talked about the total's under 40. Is that right?
It is, which I mean, and it's that was pre-Mahomes. It's now 41.5.
Oh, right.
Mahomes worth 2 points to the total. Love that. Love to see that, man.
He was worth. They were 1.5-point dogs, and now 3-point favorites, and that is on one leg. That's not. If I were the Texans, I'd be feeling a bit like, damn.
Well, I mean, they have to look at themselves in the mirror and think, well, we're actually bad.
But the horrible game environment, the Texans they permit the 4th fewest running back fantasy points. The Chiefs permit the fewest running back fantasy points because despite what you might think, teams are usually behind against them and can't really run. Do we have any Texans thoughts whatsoever? Just a totally broken offense. Joe Mixon at well less than 100%. Is Nico Collins the only one we trust? And Joe Mixon like a hold your nose RB2? Is that kind of what it boils down to?
Yeah, you have to play Mixon. You just have to. You do.
He seems, in Kyle's words, giga banged up. He did not look the same. He got like Rivers McCown, I think, thought he got like high ankle sprained, and then he just like stayed in the game. And he was like he can't move.
Yeah, it's the same thing that happened earlier in the season where he got hip dropped.
He got hip dropped again last weekend. Yeah,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Hold your nose. RB2 for Joe Mixon. Tank Dell. Never been more over. Sigmund Bloom, or no, someone in my Dynasty League trade me Mike Evans for Tank Dell. I have not proposed the trade yet. The Ravens try to draw even with the Steelers as roughly touchdown home favorites, Denny. Baltimore did anything but rock their last Pittsburgh matchup. There's another thing. Are we starting anyone beyond Zay Flowers from this Ravens skill core? 44.5 game total. Rashad Bateman sporting a walking boot. It might just be a fashion accessory. We don't know. Any Ravens skill players in this game beyond Zay?
We're looking powerfully into why he's wearing the boot. But, I mean, the Bateman thing, I mean, it is cool, like, for his Dynasty truthers or whatever. But
it was. We can confirm that.
I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of people who really love Rashad Bateman for whatever reason. But, he's being targeted on 15% of his routes on the season. That's pretty low. Last week, where he caught 2 touchdowns, he only had 3 catches on 5 targets. He averaged 23 air yards per target last week. That's not I would say that's not the most reliable fantasy profile. The Ravens, last time they played the Steelers, were slightly above their expected pass rate. But honestly, we'll get into this, I guess, now with George Pickens ruled out as of 3 minutes ago. That's bad. That's bad for everybody in this game, fantasy wise, including the peripheral Ravens guys. I guess you're starting Flowers and holding your
Mark
nose.
Andrews is probably still in the top 12.
Yeah. Andrews, yeah. But like Bateman, I feel like you don't get fooled about last week with Bateman.
Well, the only thing I'll say about that, very volatile to be targeted that deep down the field. It is also a thing that gives him matchup flipping upside as a wide receiver 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But of course, the Cero potential is absolutely off the charts with Rashad Bateman. And yeah, you hopefully can do better as wide receiver 4. But if you need maximum upside, if he plays, Rashad Bateman.
I was going to say, he's in a boot, man. Give this guy some time.
Well, they boot up a lot during the week. They actually do. That's totally fine. Kyle, with Pickens out, a single Steeler. I mean, even Najee Harris at this point is verging close to unstartable. We have a single Pittsburgh Steeler. I mean, Pat Freiermuth, I guess, has to be in like the top 12 or 14. Who do you feel good about, if anyone, in the Steelers offense for fantasy semifinals week?
Freiermuth's he's a good play. I don't like it. Yeah. Past 3 weeks finished as the tight end 6, the tight end 5, and the tight end 8.
Bad. Yeah, that's because there's 4 good tight ends. Everyone already knows that. 5 if you count Jonnu. Yeah,
you should count Jonnu. He's good. So he sees a lot of targets, really with or without Pickens, but especially with Pickens out, he sees a lot of targets. That's like all I can say about this entire team, frankly. As you pointed out, Najee Harris, what is even the point of playing Najee Harris if you're in your semifinals? He isn't a carry that went for over 20 yards in 107 carries.
But you're saying games.
Yeah. He was a senior in high school the last time he hit a long carry. But it was like week 6 or 5 versus the Giants. But it's an insane stretch for a player who is so clearly a plotter, and he doesn't run the routes anymore either. That's purely Jaylen Warren, but they're not letting Jaylen Warren get many carries. He just has 16 carries over the past 3 games. They've split the backfield perfectly to the point that you don't want to play any of them. Thank you, Steelers.
Yeah, I forgot Pat Freiermuth has scored in 3 straight games. So
I mean, it's all like the volume is not, it's tough to come by here. I know Kyle knows that, but the Pickens thing, like, it turns out when you take away an offense's only good player, it just destroys the whole thing. I mean, he's their only good player, and he made it work. Without them, I mean, you can't start Russell Wilson except for like in deep super flex, I guess. No,
you can, and this will still be the single worst loss yet of the John Harbaugh era. We can all see.
No.
You heard it here first.
It's impossible.
You heard it here first. Although the Lions lost another 2 to 3 key contributors to injury last week, they still arrive in Chicago as roughly touchdown favorites, Kyle. We know Jared Goff is a dome creature, a play from a head creature, but where I was. But does David Montgomery's loss, coupled with Detroit's growing defensive liabilities, lock Goff in as a volume-based QB1, even in this tough matchup? The Bears permit very few fantasy quarterback points and just really, really had Sam Darnold in hell.
Yeah, I mean, that also is in part because all their games are terrible experiences for Bears players, Bears fans, and in the opposing team as well, because their team doesn't score points. They don't have to, nor is it easy to, because the Bears are a good defense. I will say, even in the sort of in the annals of Goff history, so much of he is just a scheme merchant, a system guy, which has been true at points, I think.
Not at points always, but yeah. The home road splits are always shocking.
They're not.
It's like the first time all year he's been outside too. I think that actually might be true.
Yeah, if not, it's only the second, because I know he had a crazy streak of games that were played indoors. So if you're wrong on a technicality at most. But I will say, to his credit, Vegas still projects them with a team total north of 27. That on its own locks him in as a starter. But he's also, I would say, beats some of the scheme allegations in that on 3rd and 4th down and 4+, he's been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL, top 10 in yards per attempt, top 10 in total touchdown passes. And those are plays where you would think you can't just scheme up the easy stuff. Play action is less likely to work when it's 3rd and 9, right? There's no real threat of a run there. And so in that situation, he's been really good. And all of their shootouts, when they actually give up points and he has to contend with the other team, he's been really good as well. I don't think this game profiles to be of that nature, but I do think it helps give us some security that when the system breaks down, he has a shot. Not to say he's the best quarterback when the system breaks down, but if things don't go perfectly to plan, I still feel okay about him.
very crude metric, but last year on the road, Goff had only an 89 QB rating compared to 108 at home. This year it is 105. He has been playing a lot better on the road. The splits are not nearly as stark this season, Denny. Which brings us to Sam Laporta. How real is the recent Laporta surge? And is Tim Patrick becoming a wide receiver 4? He really, 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 really likes to score touchdowns, Tim Patrick.
Yeah, so we have to remember with everybody in this Lions offense that Jared Goff had 66 dropbacks last week against the Bills. Going into week 15, he averaged about 34 dropbacks per game. So roughly double. And so that's simply not happening. So when you see, go ahead.
No, I say Laporta had been percolating even before last.
A little bit. But like when I saw originally, hit 10 targets for Laporta last week. That's awesome. Yeah, that's what we know why. He's being targeted on 18% of his routes over the past 2 weeks. Not all that great. Slot usage and ADOT have remained the same. I think he's the same player, maybe slightly healthier. I will say that in 12-team leagues, you're probably starting him over guys off the waiver wire.
Oh yes, not even. I mean, I honestly think the Lions are going to have to pass a lot.
Yeah, I do.
The defense is done, and Montgomery is not playing.
I do too. So that's why I think that is very much in favor of a guy. I mean, obviously, I'm on Ross St. Brown, James Williams, but definitely the trickle down effect is good for Laporta, and also for Tim Patrick, who is out there running enough of the routes, like 70% to be able to get there if in a pass first game script.
Tim Patrick in Chicago, Illinois, or Tank Dell in Kansas City, Missouri.
It's Tim Patrick, right? Like that's.
I think it's Patrick.
I have him one spot behind Tank, and it does feel
well. I gotta say real quick, the Bears are a pretty extreme run funnel, and they're allowing a huge amount of yards before contact with which means that Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, if you're facing Jahmyr Gibbs. It's probably
close
over.
the laptop, buddy.
Over.
Close the laptop.
If you see that, if you log on, I can't wait. No, you can wait. You just you log off. You go read a book. It's over for you. He's gonna run for 250 yards.
Please, God, let him do that. Final one: Tim Patrick or Hollywood Brown?
Patrick.
Yeah, I have one spot of Hollywood, actually. Kyle, the Bears were just horrifyingly bad on Monday Night Football. Like, genuinely unwatchable football. But might it work for us, Kyle? This is likely track meet. Keep Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze in the fantasy mix. There's no way. It doesn't work having Caleb Williams drop back 45 times a game, and yet they literally almost no chance it doesn't happen this game.
Yeah.
So what does it mean for Keenan and Rome?
I mean, for Keenan, I think the PPR scam is going to work. He's been getting 20+% target shares every week for like a month, and he was, I think, the team leader in targets last week. So at worst, you're getting like a 6 to 7 target floor, and some weeks he can push 10+ quite easily. He's not particularly efficient. If you're playing in like a no PPR league, like an old school standard league, you're probably not playing Keenan, but anything else, the volume is just so good. Rome is a frustrating start because Caleb has been dreadful on deep throws. He is the second to worst graded passer on deep throws.
He'll get better. It's fine.
He might. He's got the arm.
It's over.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
It's not over. Denny thinks it's over. I was trying to bait Denny, and he didn't take the bait.
Sorry.
You could see a forehead vein popping from Denny trying to hold it back, and he did. He held it back in. Yeah.
I'm learning.
The only quarterback rated worse on deep throws than Caleb this year is Mac Jones, who is yet to complete a deep throw. He is 0-17, which is the record for the past decade. By the way, just drop that little nugget, and that's where Rome quote wins. He barely gets to win there because the targets never arrive on time or accurately. He has finished as a top 30 receiver once in his past 6 games, target share of 20+% once in his past 4 games. He does not earn enough targets, nor does he hit home on the few targets he earns for you to rank him as anything other than wide receiver 41.
I have to say, if it were viable with the fan base, which of course it won't be, but the Bears would do well.
Oh, stop it.
To sit Caleb Williams next year, to have him as a second year, learning experience. And we're going to teach you how to drop back. We're going to teach you how to throw. And we're going to teach you the basics. Cause it's the basics.
Sideline etiquette.
Yeah. And there's work on his game. Okay, we saw last year, you're not ready. Obviously We're going to sit you for a season, and then we'll try again in your third year. But obviously, they can't do that. They won't do that. That's what he needs, though. He needs a total reset.
Yeah, Andy Dalton still have an apartment in Chicago? To send him right back up. Do the thing he did for Bryce.
Yeah. They just need a vaguely competent offensive coordinator. It'll be totally fine. Real quick, Rome Odunze or Keon Coleman?
I think Rome.
Sure, Rome. Yeah, that's probably correct. Yeah.
Rome or this one doesn't really work. It's Thursday night. Rome or QJ? Really fast. 1, 2, right?
Rome.
Time. All right.
Rome.
So, Denny, DeAndre Swift check in. He has been all over the map. Travis Homer was supposed to be a thing, and this wasn't. But can we? DeAndre Swift does not feel good as an RB2 right now. Let's put it that way.
No. I think you're trying to find reasons not to play him. I mean, look, he has 33 of the 39 running back rushing attempts for Chicago over the past 3 games. But 33 over 3 games, that's nothing. Only the Raiders and Dolphins have a lower rush EPA over those 3 weeks, so it's not like it's effective. It's actually quite ineffective. He has 5 targets over those past 3 games. And he's really not running that many routes. It's like touchdown or bust sort of situation. Okay, here's an example. I would just off the top of my head, I would probably play Tank Bigsby over Swift this week.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a reason to bench DeAndre Swift, Roschon appears to be back this week practicing in full. And he was doing full goal line back stuff before. Totally. He had multiple games with touchdowns before he suffered a pretty lengthy absence with a concussion. And he's been a really good short yardage back this year. He's top 10 in terms of success rate on short yardage attempts. DeAndre Swift is really bad at those specific types of carries. So even on the off chance they get you down to the 1 in a spot where I don't know how many times that's going to happen. You don't even know you're getting the carry at the 1 if you play Swift.
Literally updating the rankings right now. I just put DeAndre Swift behind Tajay Spears. Yeah, I just dropped him 8 or 9 spots. It's over. Roschon back. Could not be more over. The Browns, and as Denny pointed out, got mad at Jameis Winston and decided to punish him by making the offense even worse. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is now the starter, Denny. Where does that leave recent stalwarts like Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku, aside from bankrupting my family?
It's over. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I have stuff here, but it's not. There is no maybe here. It's just completely over.
Well, maybe though.
Stefanski, I shout out to Stefanski for making his point and creating the worst quarterback situation in the NFL. So I looked at the metrics. Among 58 qualifying quarterbacks over the past 2 seasons, DTR ranks 58th in completion rate over expected and 54th in dropback success rate, I should say. And so Njoku might be able to survive if he plays, but then again, he didn't practice on Thursday because he's more of the short area guy. But honestly, Jeudy goes from a league winner to not playable.
I think I still am keeping him in the top 36 just because I'm kind of have if anyone can survive, it will be the alpha.
It's Jerry Jeudy, famous superstar receiver, Jerry Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy, who literally just needed one guy to throw the ball and did become a star.
Madden rating?
He lost that guy, man. DTR, DTR quietly escaped our exciting talk about who's our favorite awful spot starter, mostly because all of them played for the Giants for a while. But as Denny pointed out, DTR, arguably there are some good contenders. Worst quarterback we've seen start in the past few years. I had over the past 5 years, about 92 quarterbacks have dropped back 100, 150 times, and he's last in both EPA and CPO. He's second last in one of them.
Yeah, no, I mean
he's up there. He's a great bad spot start.
I just figured it out. DTR, is absolutely certain to suffer a calf injury on his first and Jameis immediately checks right back in.
Didn't he get injured last year, and which is why they had to bring in Flacco?
He did. He gets hit a lot.
Bad quarterbacks do take a lot of hits.
Yeah, the calf immediately going to be tingling.
Man, what is this, man?
I'm starting Jameis for that reason. Kyle, does DTR's insertion under center leave Jerome Ford as a shaky flex? We were excited about him as maybe an RB2 with Jameis. With DTR, feels like a shaky flex.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked. There are a lot of good candidates for this is the worst offensive environment in the NFL. Man, DTR.
The Giants are the worst. Let's be clear. Let me be clear.
I think Drew Lock's better than DTR by a meaningful amount. I'm going to stake my claim on that.
He is, but he's so banged up, and things are just so.
Well, you just said DTR is going to get banged up pretty quickly too.
That's
so.
right. Yeah, that's right. You heard it here first. DTR. It's the idea that DTR is going to finish this game. Actually, it's like laughable. It's seriously like laughable. He's going to hit his hand on a helmet on a follow through or something. There's just no chance. DTR.
Yeah, he's going to. Well, obviously, it'll happen on a tackle after his third interception.
I know. So yeah, you just hope Jameis, if we can get Jameis to 20 attempts as the backup. Everything's still fine. Everything's still fine, Denny.
Everything's still fine.
Denny, what kind of week does this profile as for T. Higgins? I asked you this before I saw he was yet again not practicing. Guy has practiced like 4 times ever in his NFL career.
Yeah, he still has never practiced. Yeah, I mean, it's a decent spot. The Browns play the 4th highest rate of man coverage on the season, and that's usually good for both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. When the Bengals played Cleveland in Week 7, here's something fun. The Bengals were under their expected pass rate for the first and only time this season. So it could be just Chase Brown season. I don't know.
It is going to be. They're so desperately trying to make the playoffs. They don't want anything funny happening in this game. That's like, dude, just beat the Browns and like get out of here.
Yeah,
that is what's going to happen for the Bengals. And keep it locked to Rotoworld on T. Higgins' latest injury. Keep it locked to this podcast. We'll be right back after this. Ring in the holiday season with a double dip of NFL football on NBC and Peacock this weekend. It all kicks off Saturday at noon Eastern as we lead you up to kickoff between the Texans and Chiefs. Then on Sunday evening, Baker Mayfield and the Bucs travel to Dallas, Texas for a date with the Cowboys. And by Dallas, I mean Arlington. I'm sure that's a locally sensitive topic. That's not actually Dallas. That's Arlington.
We get it.
Trying to lock down the NFC South, the Bucs arrive in Arlington as modest 4-point favorites against an increasingly plucky Cowboys squad. Kyle, that's right. I called the Cowboys plucky. Dallas can go either way as a defensive matchup, but how are we feeling about our featured dynasty back, we being you and me, Bucky Irving, after his ultimately productive Week 16 return, Kyle?
Well, wasn't enough. I got the boot, so don't care. Skip this question. No, just kidding. I think we're probably stuck in committee land with Bucky for a little bit. Like, they're going to be nursing this back injury all the way through. Presumably, they're making the playoffs. They're pretty likely to do so. But Bucky's so good. You don't need to see 80% of the carries for him to get there. Last week, he had 15 attempts, which I believe tied Rachaad White exactly, ran for 117 yards. That would be a career high for Rachaad White. 2 weeks after, he did 150 yards, which would have been a career high for Rachaad White. Like, he is so much more explosive on a per touch basis that if you get him to 15 and he has a few receptions as well, you feel pretty good about him. Maybe he's not a top 12 running back. After we got the 25 carry game, I was totally ranking him in the top 12. Maybe you're not putting him there quite yet because he is still stuck in a committee, but he's awesome. He's getting 15 plus touches. It's a good matchup in general. Like, this is an overall weak Cowboys team. They're favorites. Yeah, you're starting him. There's just not a question about it.
That is the quote-unquote legacy of the Bucky back injury, is that it just basically recreated the Rachaad White RB 1B role that had ever so briefly disappeared. And then, they featured him one time and he got hurt. And you hate to see it, Denny. Jalen McMillan is one of the most queried players heading into the fantasy semifinals. Can he possibly be in lineups with everything on the line this weekend? I mean, probably not, but maybe.
Yeah, I mean, in a normie league, probably not. But I think you could be very interested in him if you're in a deep league. In Week 15, Jalen McMillan ran a route on 26 of 30 dropbacks for Tampa. He had a 23% target share. You could do way worse than that. Go back to Week 14, he ran 29 of 35 routes, had a 25% target share. I will say that we've seen something of a shift in the Tampa offense of late, where we could rely on them to be as pass heavy as almost anyone for most of the season. But since Week 10, the Bucs are 24th in pass rate over expected. That could affect, that doesn't affect Mike Evans really, but everybody else, it could have an impact on them.
Someone trade me Mike Evans. Jalen McMillan, by the way, I think, speaking of Mike Evans, my theory is that, so Denny, we would joke about, they would ask Todd Bowles about Jalen McMillan, like, not familiar with the player. Like, you're, please be more. Can you give me a clue?
Yeah, he would say the young man's on the team.
Yeah, he would have no clue who he was. They were so terrified of him, like lining up wrong or making a mistake, that they just didn't feature him. Since Mike Evans has been back, I feel like that's given them like courage, basically, like if the rookie is going to have a bad rep, that's okay because Mike Evans is out on the field. And I almost feel like Evans's return made them more willing to cut Jalen McMillan loose.
I think you're right. And they were very scared, and he was making very dumb decisions.
He was. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, he wasn't playing well at all. No. Kyle, what is the Rico Dowdle forecast here? 3 straight, just amazing performances. But the Bucs get smashed through the air. They're more stingy on the ground. Obviously, we're playing Rico Dowdle, but what are the expectations for Rico Dowdle?
Yeah, I think we should temper expectations just a little bit. He'll still dominate the touches, and he's been really efficient, and the increase in rush attempts has not affected his efficiency at all, unlike our beloved Tony Pollard of last year, who, albeit I think it was just related to the injury, really failed us when they gave him a bunch of touches. Hasn't been the case for Rico. As you pointed out, Bucs have faced the second highest pass rate over expected this year. They're a below average matchup in terms of fantasy points allowed to running backs. And Rico, the one sort of bugaboo with his profile is that he doesn't run a ton of routes and hasn't seen a ton of targets lately. They actually used their fullback Hunter Lupke as the basically passing downs back. But in losses, Rico Dowdle is still averaging 3.3 catches. They do target him when they're losing. It's just he doesn't get all the routes. So, you know, worst case scenario, you're probably looking at a scoreless, almost 20 touch game.
Yeah, the Cowboys implied team total. Yeah, it's actually, wow, it must be pretty good. I feel like, was the game total always 48.5? Did that go up?
It got up by 2. It raised by 2.
So I thought it was 46.5. So yeah, Cowboys, we're feeling okay about it. That's why, Denny, I'm asking you, is it Cooper Rush season? I've seen him bandied about as one of the desperation streamers of the week. Is it too desperate though?
No, I think 12 teams. I mean, you could do better, but I definitely think like, okay, here's an example. I'm pretty easily playing Rush over Russell Wilson in Superflex.
Easily. What about Geno?
Yeah, I'm playing Cooper Rush.
Yeah,
just based on the environment. I mean, it's a good look. The Bucs are now the most extreme pass funnel in the NFL. The Chargers were 14% over their expected pass rate last week against these Bucs. I'm obviously writing about this game in the funnel defense report for tomorrow. And since Cooper Rush has taken over at quarterback, the Cowboys have had a 61% neutral pass rate, which is, you know, not bad. Like I thought it would be like 48% or something. But they seem not to be too afraid to let him operate like a real life NFL quarterback. And he has multiple touchdowns in 3 or 4 games. You know, mainstream media won't tell you that.
No, he is like the platonic ideal of a real life backup. Final one. Let me put your feet to the fire. I love to put Denny's feet on the fire.
My feet are always on fire. Go ahead.
Yeah, Cooper Rush or CJ Stroud?
Wow. I guess Stroud.
I go Rush, man.
I'm Stroud one spot higher. It feels wrong. I think I'm going to screw it. I'm going to adjust the rankings right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm being a total coward.
Cooper Rush or Penix, by the way.
Penix.
The Penix team total is very high. Like, that is scary high expectations for a rookie quarterback, but I am excited to lose money on him in DFS. Let me just put it that way.
It has to be absolutely unprecedented that a not even good team is starting a rookie quarterback in week 16 for his debut, and they're 8.5-point favorites. Like,
yeah, it's crazy.
The Giants, talk about needing to look in the mirror.
Yeah, I know it is time.
One of the endless teams changing quarterbacks this week, the Tennessee Titans, visit the Colts as roughly 3 to 4 point underdogs. Denny, what will the effects on the Titans offense be of inserting Mason Rudolph under center?
Yeah, so the Titans overall have been a little more pass heavy when Rudolph is under center compared to when Will Levis is under center. The Titans minus 1% drop back rate over expected when Rudolph starts, but they've been 6% under when Levis starts. So they might have a little more pass volume to go around here. 2/3 of Mason Rudolph's attempts this season have been within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. That should be good for the running backs, particularly, I guess, Tajay Spears, if he keeps up his role from last week. And then Chig Okonkwo, who we talked about briefly on Tuesday's show. But Okonkwo has been completely done for fantasy with Levis, but, kind of involved with Rudolph. Of course, 10 targets last week. That's not going to happen. But lots of short check down stuff from Rudolph that you were not getting that from Levis. And in the 4 games that Rudolph started for Tennessee this year, Calvin Ridley saw 31% of the targets and 49% of the air yards. That's a pretty good profile.
That is a very good profile there. Sorry, it could be too hard to explain. Kyle, Tajay Spears versus Tony Pollard. What's going on here? They seem more interested in managing Tony Pollard's ankle injury. A very strong matchup for the Titans running game. Colts cannot stop the run. They lock down the pass. How are we feeling?
Sorry, listener. We were talking in our side chat about our pacing of the show. We love to try and keep the actionable information flying. And both Pat and producer Adam were saying that, like, let's keep the pace up. You know, a lot of games left to go. And I immediately said, guys, we need to slow it on down. So I'll keep it quick. I think Spears last week gave us a lot more than we should expect going forward. Tony Pollard still carried him 17-4. Spears is playing purely the passing downs role, which, I mean, is good if your team is forced to throw a lot. And of course, like, we kind of expect every Titans game, they're going to have to do that because their quarterback play is so bad. But you're projecting him to be Justice Hill. Maybe you think he's a little more efficient. Like, I think he should be, but you're projecting him to be Justice Hill on a bad team. So he's maybe just inside the top 36. And I think all his role does in terms of Tony Pollard is it makes Pollard much more sensitive to game script, frankly.
Spears, I don't know, man. The Colts, they cannot stop the run for some reason. I think it's going to be, and all of a sudden,
he doesn't run the football. He got 4 carries last week.
I know, but I'm saying, like, they'll be more involved in the running game in general. Surely the checkdowns are transferring over from last week, is what I'm saying. 6 for 87 is easily repeatable. Denny, by the way, I wanted to hear what Denny was saying on Mason Rudolph, but I was currently dying off camera when he was talking and heard.
Yeah. So just so folks know, I was actually looking at my notes off screen, and I come back, and Kyle's literally crying from laughter.
I was trying to hold it in.
And Pat's off camera, like belly laughing, and I was like, and I'm thinking, oh my god, did I say something? Like I thought that I
got a case of giggles.
Yep, we got the giggles real bad. Denny, do either Josh Downs or Michael Pittman Jr. crack the top 40?
Maybe Downs. I do have a couple notes here. So since Downs returned from his injury, the Pittman and Downs have combined for 50% of the team's targets. That's pretty much what you expect. Since week 10, only 3 teams allow a higher drop back success rate than the Titans. I really think that the Titans secondary is kind of vulnerable here, and you can be.
Titans defense is garbage.
Yeah, it's really bad. It makes me kind of think you can get away with Richardson this week.
Oh, you can get away with Richardson. I just don't know about it. Probably still not as pass catchers, though.
Can Downs get away with Richardson? Can Pittman get away with Richardson? It's a different question than Richardson because he's running a lot and well, obviously.
He is. Yeah.
The Rams make a dreaded bi-coastal road trip to visit the Jets as field goal favorites, Kyle. Aaron Rodgers is playing his best football just in time for literally no one except for Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson managers. Do we like this matchup? The Rams, they don't allow a touchdown to the 49ers because there's been a driving rainstorm. They allow the greatest fantasy performance of all time to Josh Allen 2 weeks ago. How do we feel about Aaron Rodgers and the Jets?
Yeah, split the difference, but I think if you split those two numbers, it's still a good performance. What, you give Allen 50 and Purdy 4, you divide that by 2.
I think Purdy was under 5.
Yeah. You split that in half and it's still like 26, 27 fantasy points. So I think it's a good spot for the playing for nothing but pride Jets. The Rams allow the 9th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. They're a dreadful 27th in EPA per dropback this year. They've gotten slightly better over the second half of the season, but they're still only 24th over the past 8 or so weeks. So it's been a good matchup all year. I don't think a small sample of the past few weeks being slightly worse makes a difference. Of note, following his first game, Devontae Adams has earned 32% of the targets, 37% of the air yards. Garrett Wilson's matched him in air yards, falling farther and farther behind in targets, still 26%, a really good number. But I think we know who the number 1 receiver is. Obviously, last week kind of put an exclamation point on that.
By the way, Aaron Rodgers ain't playing for nothing. He's playing for his legacy, and that, of course, is his Pro Football Reference page. And the 1-yard touchdowns have never been going more, Denny. Denny, what to make of the cluster bleep in the Jets' backfield? Breece Hall off the injury report. Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen probably both going to play, but both nursing back injuries.
Yeah, Breece Hall 11 touches last week in his return from injury. Still, he's banged up. I mean, that's not going away.
He's not on the injury report, so clearly he's fine.
Right, sure. Okay. Yeah, I mean, he ran a route on 16 of 36 dropbacks last week against Jacksonville. He saw 2 targets, caught both of them. He saw 9 of the 18 running back rushing attempts for 3.3 yards per carry. He's a very low ceiling RB2-ish, maybe.
Yeah, he sneaks in the top 24, but only just.
I mean, if you drafted Breece Hall, you're probably not playing for much.
No, you're not. So it's kind of a moot point.
Hey,
you're in the spot the Jets are. You're playing for pride. You're playing for your Pro Football Reference page. You can look back at the end of the season. And be like, guys actually finished 7th in points.
The toilet bowl, yeah, it's very important. Stakes very high, Denny. Yes, Denny.
Real quick, question on Rodgers, who's healthier, who is doing the Shaq and Kobe thing with Adams. Are you guys entertaining the thought of playing him over Jayden Daniels this week?
No, God, no. Yeah. Like, seriously, yeah, no. That's gonna be a hard no for me there.
Okay,
yeah.
That's gonna be enough for me, dog.
I mean, you know who Jayden Daniels is playing, correct?
I do. I don't feel great about it.
I just couldn't care less.
The 2000
I care a little
Ravens.
bit.
It's a really bad. It's a really bad matchup.
Hey, listen. What did the Commanders do? Win or lose in Week 15? Was it a win?
Yes.
So the point was that they barely beat the Saints.
Oh, they
who
barely
was the worst team in the league, and could have lost if the Saints.
I don't know, guys. I feel like Rodgers slam dunk to outscore Daniels.
The quinning has set in for the Washington Commanders, but we do not care about that. Speaking of quarterbacks, Kyle, what kind of matchup is this for the Rams offense? Is Matthew Stafford startable in 1 QB leagues? He's kind of. I wrote my rankings article. Stafford is the quarterback like Rodgers wants to be in fantasy. Mm-hmm. Like I can get you 280 yards and 2 touchdowns. Can't really do less than that. Definitely can't do more than that. But is he startable in 1 QB leagues?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Is that like last week we finally saw Rodgers be what we wanted him to be all year. It's just Matthew Stafford. There are worse things than Matthew Stafford, though, and the Jets, since firing the only guy doing his job in the building, Robert Saleh, have been like the worst defense in the NFL. Since firing him, they are 30th in dropback EPA per play. They are 31st in overall EPA. They are a terrible defense without Saleh. They were really good before that, too. So it's been a great matchup for quarterbacks ever since that move, and I think Stafford will continue to take advantage of it.
The exhausted Miami Dolphins and 49ers meet up in Miami with the Fins serving as narrow home favorites, Denny. Tua stopped getting away with it in a big way last week. While this 49ers matchup does not look any more forgiving, the Niners don't have anything to play for anymore. I feel like the Niners could go totally off the rails, though, the final 3 weeks. What is Tua's QB1 status for the fantasy semis?
Not good. I actually think you can't play him as a starter in 12-team leagues.
Wouldn't go that far.
Try again, Denny.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
I have Tua ranked 1 spot ahead of Aaron Rodgers right now, to be frank.
No way. I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Not falling for that one. This game started at 49-point total. It's down to 44.5. 49ers are facing the lowest neutral pass rate since week 10. The Dolphins are going to establish it all day with the most inefficient runner.
Who are they establishing with? They're throwing. They're establishing with the short passing game. Is what they're doing, Denny.
Okay, so Achane gets 4 yards per reception. Yeah, it's great.
Keep it coming, please.
The Dolphins are second in pass rate over expected since week 10, so they do have that going for them. I think this is a really ugly fantasy environment, and I don't have anything to do with Tua.
I wish I was saying this as a bit. I really do sort of think the Niners are just going to quit on the season, and I think that is a little working in the Dolphins' favor. The vibes on this Niners team have been so toxic all year, and then suffer that horrifying loss. And they got to go cross. I mean, they're going to Miami. They're going to be partying all night. They're not going to.
That's analytics.
It is. Kyle, with Jalen Waddle's health up in the air, wrong side of questionable, it would appear. Do we just write him off as a top 36 option? And I mean, he doesn't even have that many targets, but do his lost targets go anywhere in particular, or are they just spread out too evenly for it to matter?
Yeah, as far as Waddle, like, what are you missing out if you bench him? Like, he's got 3 games over 10 PPR points this year, 1 over 20. Barely hits a ceiling, but barely has a floor that goes over 10. So now he's banged up. Yeah, don't start him. Malik Washington is an interesting top 60 fantasy option, maybe. Saw 6 targets last week. But I do think that it's a bit risky to just say he's going to play the entirety of the Waddle role, which, as you pointed out, hasn't been that useful this year. So I think he should be stashed for sure. I would take him over Wan'Dale Robinson. I'll give you that.
He probably had a better game than Wan'Dale's had all year last weekend. Malik Washington.
He's good.
He is very good. He was one of my favorite day 3 prospects. I think we were all kind of hyping him up. Denny, any worries for the Niners pass catchers after just a horrible face? They'd never seen rain before, apparently.
I know. What is with that? The fact that Purdy completely collapses anytime any precipitation comes out of the sky is crazy. Like, this guy went to school in Iowa, correct?
He did.
Yeah.
I was on a different podcast where we were operating on the assumption that he was from Iowa. Then we did look. He's actually from Arizona, which would maybe
that explains a lot.
He becomes the Wicked Witch of the West the second he gets a single raindrop.
I just want to real quick. Juwan Jennings was the cover guy for the regression files this week because boy, did he have a great expected points game last week.
I was told those don't matter.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if you play in expected points leagues, you crushed with Jennings against LA last week. But yeah, I mean, he had 121 air yards last week against the Rams. That was the 8th most among receivers in week 15. His 9 targets constitute a 30% target share. He has 38% of the team's air yards over the past month. Like, if there's going to be a big play in this Niners offense, which is a big if, it's going to be him or George Kittle and nobody else. So don't panic at all. Like, 12-team league wise, you still got to get Jennings in your lineup.
Or Debo. What about? I guess you don't have to get Debo in there. He's just.
I don't think so. No.
You don't have to get Isaac Gurundo in there because it appears he's not going to play with a hamstring injury that we're in classic 49ers fashion finding out 1 week after their most recent game.
Right.
Any Patrick Taylor Jr. top 24? Go.
No.
Yeah, go for it. Have some fun.
He probably is. Just
really?
Yeah.
He was the only one to play an offensive snap last week. Izzy Abanikanda was a healthy scratch. He recently joined the team, so you wouldn't expect him to be on the game day roster that quickly. But another week isn't going to get him to know the playbook entirely. Keyshawn Vaughn played special teams last week, didn't actually see the field on offense. So a decent amount of Taylor snaps and touches. 24 is about as high as you can go. Like, just sneak him in, maybe.
Well, let's do rapid fire. Patrick Taylor Jr. or Breece Hall? Kyle.
Oh, Breece.
What
a sick question. Why'd you do that to me?
It's Taylor. Patrick Taylor Jr. or Jerome Ford?
Oh, Taylor.
It has to be Taylor. Yeah.
Ramondre Stevenson.
Taylor.
Ramondre.
Isaiah Pacheco.
Taylor.
Yeah, I mean,
Pacheco?
it's Taylor. No one wants to face their fate. No, it's
Agreed. Really?
Season. It's Taylor season. The Minnesota Vikings head to Seattle for a game the Seahawks will be dying to slop up with their hobbled quarterback and uncertain backfield, Kyle. Even if Geno goes, which it appears he will, how over is it for DK Metcalf? It's never been more over.
Doesn't feel great for the former superstar wide receiver. Lowest yards per route run since his rookie season, second lowest yards after the catch production since he entered the NFL. He's tying his lowest open score in terms of ESPN's player tracking data. And then last week, the targets floor fell out as well. 10% target share compared to 40% for JSN. So now we can't lock him into even a 1B role. I think JSN has just fully supplanted him. He's a field stretching number 2 who's having, by some metrics, the worst or second worst year of his career. He's a decent bet to make a big play. He's still good at that. But the notion that I think he's even the 1B in this offense is kind of gone.
I was just daydreaming about trading a 3rd-round pick for DK Metcalf, but that probably
insulting, frankly. Even though
I was wondering, I have injured McCaffrey. Would you trade McCaffrey for Mike Evans? I wonder.
No, I don't.
I guess I can't do that. What would Kenneth Walker's return mean for the Seahawks backfield? Denny, so could he even be trusted as an RB2 or what? He's not practicing though. Neither is Zach Charbonnet. Pops up in an oblique. It's the Seahawks, though. Like, there's literally no connection between what they do with the injury report and reality. So it's a little hard to read into this, but just give us your thoughts, as hard as it is right now in the Seahawks backfield.
Yeah, I mean, if Walker returns and Charbonnet plays, I think both of them are hard to trust in a 12-team format. I guess, just by the way, in case both miss, go ahead and pick up Kenny McIntosh, who would be the starter. and probably the workhorse.
Had him in a league, and I forgot. Actually,
I just did that a few minutes ago.
I'm actually going to do that right now.
Totally. I'm paying attention to what you're saying. Not adding Kenny McIntosh right now.
How do you spell that if you were just for the listeners?
It's like the computer.
So I think you're trying to find reasons to like not play the Seahawks running backs this week. It's a bad spot anyway.
If they're both healthy, I mean, there's just no possible way you can assume the typical role for Kenneth Walker at this point because he's been so banged up. And Zach Charbonnet was just better. But then Zach Charbonnet, it seems like the classic rhythm back. Like the dude is not going to cut it as like a co-starter.
It's a bad combination there in the backfield right now.
Kyle, TJ Hawkinson still fitting into the top 10. So much target domination by Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. Has been looking a little better though for TJ Hawkinson the past few weeks. So what are our thoughts on TJ Hawkinson?
He had a 23% target share last week. He's finished as a tight end 1 in 4 of his past 6 games. He's just sneaking into the tight end 1 ranks in terms of targets per route run, overall target share. And he had a little bit of a slow start, obviously coming back from the catastrophic knee injury. I don't think his ceiling's maybe quite where you'd expect given the high-end ceiling of the entire offense. But outside of that, I still think he's probably top 8.
So I'm not even kidding. I was adding Kenny McIntosh. I thought you were going to keep talking. Denny, or anybody, do we trust Sam Darnold as a QB1? Just had his first bad start. I think we still probably trust him. Even though Seahawks defense has been playing so well, I think you kind of just have to trust Sam Darnold, don't you, for this week?
I would start Rodgers over Darnold.
No.
What's
this all about? You're so desperate to go contrarian now. I like Rodgers now. I like him even more off the field.
My social media advisors told me to go in on Rodgers now.
Go in on Rodgers.
The stock is low. Buy, Denny. Buy.
No, the stock has never been higher. He cooked. He's been cooking.
Well, you were buying into him last week, though. You got it. You got it.
I bought into him the week before.
Sell it, Denny. Sell it. This is the time. Call him a bust. Call him a fraud. Go.
The Rams are terrible.
So we're not, but we're trusting Sam Darnold, right? I mean,
I'm trusting.
It's not a great matchup. I'll give you that.
No, it's an ugly matchup.
I went 1 for 2 on Kenny McIntosh in my 14-team leagues. The reality checked Carolina Panthers host the Cardinals as 4.5-point underdogs, Denny. Reality checks, of course, are all Kyler Murray has been giving fantasy managers all season. Dare we trust him or Marvin Harrison Jr. in the fantasy semifinals?
Well, I did write up Kyler, of course, in the regression files because eventually he's got to throw a touchdown, right? I mean, so he has 4 touchdowns over his past 194 pass attempts. That's good for a 2% touchdown rate.
That's called the Cousins.
Since week 9. Yes, he's gone full Cousins. Did you see they tried to get McBride a touchdown last week on a little shovel near the goal line, and they couldn't do it? He was like inches short. Crazy bad luck there, but eventually
crazy bad.
Yeah, that's
also that. The Arizona offense overall is kind of lopsided as far as like rushing touchdown production compared to the passing touchdown production. Maybe that has something to do with Kyler. We're looking into that.
What's going on there?
I have this number somewhere here in the regression files, but they have one of the highest rates of rushing touchdowns this season. I guess the thinking is that, if he's going to regress, it might as well be against the Panthers defense that last week allowed, Cooper Rush to cook. And I think you could do worse than Kyler. Do we have him top 12?
Yeah, QB 11.
Oh,
I seriously hate every second of it. It is the matchup's too good. He's so overdue to regress.
And they have a good total too, I think. I'm looking for it here.
Yeah, they do. It's really good. Actually.
It's one of the highest of the week, if I'm not mistaken.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, 25.75. You got to start him.
It's because James Conner is just going to go Burr, right? Kyle, I'll ask you about the Panthers in a second, but this is like the ultimate Burr game. Amari DiMercato on IR. Trey Benson seems like he's going to be out with the ankle injury. James Conner's been catching passes again. Top 10 James Conner this week.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's the best matchup in football for rushing production. They're huge favorites, good team total. Like you said, the competition, which wasn't cutting into his backfield work a ton, but even that is completely wiped out, as you point out. Top 10 easily. Like, you could tell me you have him at 6. I think there are like 4 or 5 like true superstar players that, regardless of matchup, stay in the top 4 or 5. And then he leads the pack of the next guys.
James Conner or Devin Achane. There's no point to even discuss this, but
Connor?
Yeah, it's Achane. But
okay.
Kyle, we're starting Chuba Hubbard for the Panthers. We know that. We're starting anyone else. We're really kind of trying to hone in here on Adam Thielen. Can Adam Thielen be trusted after what was a giga step back for Bryce Young last weekend?
Yeah, even in the step back, which maybe continues, we'll see. Even the step back, 27% of the targets and 10 PPR points, which is fine. If that's his floor, if Bryce fully implodes and he still dominates the targets and still gets, it was 5 for 50, if I remember correctly, that's fine. He's probably still in the top 36, just about.
We'll be right back after this. Catch the back-to-back national champions this Saturday when 11th-ranked UConn travels to Indianapolis for a date with Butler. The Big East battle tips off at noon Eastern only on Peacock. Kyle Denny was unfamiliar with Dan Hurley's psycho mode. We talked about that on too. Maybe you are too. I don't know. You guys don't.
Yeah, no clue. I'm not watching college basketball. No.
What if it's on Peacock? Huh?
Oh, you watch it for sure. Absolutely.
But you never thought of that.
I hadn't.
Hey, by the way, what would have happened to you in 2007 if you had said, "Hey, buddy, let's go watch the college football playoffs on HBO"?
Well, it's on over the air too. Still,
well I'm just saying, what would have you would have been institutionalized?
But we have literally no time.
Well, no, Denny, it's normal. Okay, SMU made the playoffs and they're playing Penn State.
yeah. SMU was in the Atlantic Coast Conference. People are burying Penn State because they're apparently having trouble selling tickets for this game, which I'll say it's insane to do these games not only over Christmas break but before Christmas break.
Oh, I know.
Like they're like. No offense to Indiana, but like no one wants to be in South Bend, Indiana, Christmas weekend, including the people that live in South Bend. They got to figure something out about this scheduling. The Eagles, they got to figure out if they're elite. The Commanders, they got to figure out if they're good. They meet up in Washington with a hedging 3.5-point line in favor of Philly, Kyle. How concerned are we about Jayden Daniels and Terry McLaurin rug pulls in this one? Turns out Denny is extremely concerned. He's starting Aaron Rodgers over Jayden Daniels.
I'm not. Couldn't be me. I mean, I believe Jayden Daniels is the QB 5 or 6 this year. Come hell or high water, they're going to get him there, specifically because they're playing a slightly different style of football over the past 3 weeks. Their pass rate over expected, which in the month following Jayden Daniels' rib injury was negative, just about negative 1%, is up to positive 1%. It's a small change, but coupled with the fact that they are using him as a mobile quarterback, which they almost stopped doing after the rib injury. Very understandable. He was averaging 1.5 designed carries for a month after the rib injury, is up to 4 per game over the past 3 weeks. So not only does he get to throw the football more, but he gets to drop back more, which means he scrambles more, and they call more carries for him. This is the Jayden Daniels setup that we've been looking for since like week 4 or 5, whenever he got banged up with the rib issue. So they're using him in a way that should score a ton of fantasy points. The matchup, yeah, it's not good. I don't care. Who cares?
Yeah, I don't care either. By the way, you know why these games are on TNT and Max, by the way? This is not a joke. They were part of a trade for inside the NBA.
Oh.
They're like subletting inside the NBA, to ESPN for the next 10 years. And this was apparently part of the super complicated media deal. Denny, if you're an AJB, that's AJ Brown, if you're not in the know, or Devontae Smith manager, I do fear full establishment in this one against a very vulnerable Commanders run defense.
Yeah, man. I mean, Commanders allowing the second highest rate of rush yards before contact. This is Saquon and Hurts season. I mean, they got back, into rhythm last week because AJ Brown complained for a week and then blamed the media for making the story.
And also Dallas Goedert's hurt too. That helps.
I think that could come crashing down. This environment is really ugly. Like the Eagles have faced. Hold on. The Eagles have faced the second fewest offensive plays this season, and the Commanders have faced the third fewest offensive plays this season. So there's just not going to be a lot of play volume here. I think it makes everybody kind of not touchdown dependent, but big play dependent, I should say.
What if I told you, Denny can't look this up because he's blocked by AJ Brown on X. But what if I told you that AJ Brown's avatar is still Heath Ledger Joker?
Well, then you gotta pencil him in for 14 targets. Huh?
Still Heath Ledger Joker. There's still hope if you're an AJB manager. Kyle, not a great spot for Brian Robinson Jr., is it?
No, terrible spot. This game's going to suck. Eagles defense real good. Don't want to play anyone against them. Not a good spot. I'm just kidding. It's look, we care a little less about Jayden Daniels because of the spot, because albeit they're underdogs, they are going to get to throw a lot. He's going to get to scramble a lot. The rushing production is going to be easy to come by. We care a little bit more about Terry McLaurin because he does have to contend with the fact that he just can't scheme up rushing production for himself. We care a lot about the matchup for Brian Robinson. The tiers fall as Brian Robinson facing an Eagles defense, giving up the second fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs. They're underdogs in this game. If I'm betting on anyone, it's the passing attack, which I am doing, much less so with the running back-based running attack.
Starting Aaron Rodgers over Jayden Daniels, like that's the kind of thing you would never forget the rest of your life after it goes poorly. Like, you cannot lead our listeners astray.
Look, I like the spot for Aaron Rodgers, but I do think in terms of minimizing regret, it's a spot where you could feel bad afterward.
Come on, man.
All right. I just look. I know Jayden Daniels. I will say this: he was very banged up the last time he played Philadelphia, and not as banged up now.
Yeah, he's gonna nuke. I'm a little concerned about the spot. Fresh off back-to-back molten destructions of opposing defenses, the Bills arrive home in Buffalo with this week's highest implied team total as 2 touchdown favorites against the Patriots. Denny, how on earth do we sort out these Bills pass catchers? Who are we actually comfortable starting this week amongst Khalil Shakir, Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman, and Dalton Kincaid?
Yeah, I mean, the reason no one is scoring any fantasy points while the Bills put up like 40 plus every week is because we have a volume problem here. Josh Allen has 88 pass attempts over the past 3 games. Just for context, Russell Wilson has 87, so just right with him. Josh Allen has 58 completions over those 3 games, 6 fewer than, I don't know, Bryce Young.
Well, how many of them have been in the end zone, though? Like
7.
Yeah.
So volume is an issue. Over the past 3 games, I'm not going to talk about target rate because when we talk about low volume, I think that kind of gets lost in the conversation. But like just raw targets over the past 3 games, Khalil Shakir 22 targets, Amari Cooper 17, only 9 of which have been deemed catchable because Cooper is averaging 17 air yards per target. Shakir is averaging 7 air yards per target. So we prefer the latter, not the former. Cooper is just super volatile. There's not much we can do about it.
I know. I felt real dumb still ranking him around the top 36 after 0 targets.
Yeah. We were all saying that about you too. I know we didn't say it to your face.
You have to look back and see 14 2 weeks ago. Sorry, Denny.
Just real quick, Dalton Kincaid last week ran a route on 22 of 37 dropbacks, not very strong. That might have had to do with the runaway game script
being good
at the
I
end.
make that joke. It's correct.
He had 7 targets last week, which means that he was targeted on 31% of his routes. That's super strong. Dawson Knox naturally led Bills tight ends with 26 routes last week.
He's better.
Gosh, he just is better. It's just like not even a bit. He's just clearly better.
He is better, obviously.
They paid him as if he was better, and then they drafted a tight end still. Kyle, not loving Ramondre Stevenson as a 2-score road dog. He's been one of the ultimate negative game script face planners this season. Anything positive to say about the potential setup?
Nope, you took the notes right off of my Google Doc. 11.2 fantasy points in losses compared to 17.9 in the very rare Patriots win. And the weird thing is he doesn't increase his receiving total almost at all. 2.3 catches. What was that?
So it's all Gibby, yeah. It's not even all Gibby. I don't even know where it goes.
No, it's like a Ramondre pass block or go sit in the flat while Drake May does something real cool and one of your receivers turns it into an interception somehow. 2.3 catches for 9 yards in wins, 2.5 for 13 in losses. There's no PPR scamming going on when they lose. So yeah, I think he's really unplayable.
Denny, people are trying to make Drake May into a streamer, kind of understandably so, because he's just acing the eye test. The box scores aren't very bad, but the supporting cast is so bad. The Bills just gave up back-to-back huge fantasy performances, but it was 2 veteran quarterbacks. I just fear sack and turnover season for Drake May in this one. But do we like Drake May as a streamer? And do you like any Patriots pass catchers in Week 16 lineups?
I like Hunter Henry, Pat's favorite tight end. Hunter Henry, 24% of the targets, 23% of the air yards over the past 3 games. That's pretty good for a tight end. And Drake May, I think the best argument you could make is that it's just runaway game script and he has to drop back a bunch. He has
that's happening. I just worry he's going to get devoured in it.
I mean, right. I mean, he has at least 4 rushing attempts in 6 straight games. I mean, the right kind of game script here, and he gets like easily like 7 or 8 rushes, maybe somewhere in the red zone. I will say I'm playing Penix over May.
Really? I do have May ranked ahead of Penix, I'll say. Just so uncertain about the volume.
This team total has me shook with the Falcons. Like, they are projected to score points, man.
Maybe I gotta get Penix.
Yeah, you should look into it powerfully.
I don't feel good about it, but like I'm going off the numbers, and Vegas, taking a lot of money, has decided that we should see a lot of Falcons points. So
I was going to say something on air. I'll say it in the group chat instead. The Packers prepare to flatten the Saints as 2 touchdown home favorites, Kyle. We would normally love this setup, but we know it's just going to be a green light for the Packers to go absolutely insane on the ground.
Yes.
It's the fantasy playoffs. Zeros are unacceptable in our lineups. So which Packers pass catchers are in 12-team league lineups?
Romeo Doubs is definitely in. Put him in the circle of trust. Trying to filter out the games where someone has missed, which has been Watson. Actually, not a Watson. Maybe Watson 1 game missed. Doubs a few games missed. And then, of course, Jordan Love's missing earlier in the season, 2 games for him, if I remember correctly. Removing those games, 27% target share when they have, or 27% first read target share when they have the full cast of everyone healthy. Whenever they have all the receivers out there, they do 2 things. They run and they throw to Doubs. That's about it. At least that's what their plays are designed to do. And second in first read target share is actually Christian Watson. So I think Jayden Reed, as a part-time player who isn't overly involved in the offense, I'm probably not starting him this week. Watson is just the big player bust guy. And Doubs, you can kind of just feel comfortable with. He has been, whenever he's out there, their number 1 receiver.
I had Reed ahead of Doubs. This very rarely, but like when you were talking, I was like, yeah, it's unacceptable to have Reed ahead of Doubs. And I actually am like changing the rankings as we speak. Just not acceptable. Jayden Reed is not acceptable. This is unacceptable. Denny, any sicko Saints plays? Does Kendre Miller qualify? The Saints had not. This is the Monday night game, I believe. So we didn't have a Saints injury report yesterday. We don't quite know what's going on with Alvin Kamara.
Right.
We're getting like sicko with Spencer Rattler and the Saints.
Right. So, I mean, just talking about who was out there last week, Juwan Johnson led the team in pass routes last week against the Commanders. Saw 3 targets, caught 2 for 12 yards. Marquez Valdez-Scantling was close to the team lead in routes, caught 2 of 5 targets for 64 yards. That's about it. That's about what we're working with. I guess, Miller would be a desperation play in deeper formats if Alvin Kamara is out.
I can give you a little Alvin Kamara update. While we're on the show, ESPN's Adam Schefter, the groin injury is still being evaluated. It's possible it is a season-ending injury.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
he's out this week.
It
seems almost certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Wow. This might be the least talented. Obviously, the injuries, because of the injuries. Like what the Saints are right now, might be the least talented offense I've ever seen in my life.
If you measure it by players who I do not know who they are, or I at least do not know when the last time they played football, so absolutely be that. Like I did not know who Kevin Austin was before this. Dante Pettis, I couldn't have told you the last time he played football. Like Jordan Mims, their 4th string running back. They have so many.
Denny surely is going to get to Mason Tipton here any second.
No.
That's right. It's just a matter of time. I have to say that just as we just told, if you're playing Jahmyr Gibbs, you close your laptop, you don't even look this week, you're done. If you're playing against the Packers defense, you're finished.
You are finished. It's a real.
Just want you to know it doesn't matter what you do from here. You pick up this guy, that guy, whatever. It's over.
It's never, ever been more over. When we began, the Jaguars and Raiders were off the board because we didn't know it was going to be a quarterback for the Raiders. It's now on the board. The Raiders are 1.5-point favorites. Denny, there's just as much uncertainty in the Raiders' backfield as there was in the Raiders' skill core. Now, there's not uncertainty because AOC is practicing in full. Sincere McCormick appears to be out with an ankle injury. If you
They
have
IR'd him. He's out for sure.
okay, yeah, he's out. If you have to play a Raiders running back, is it Madison or is it Amir Abdullah?
I think it's Abdullah. He ran 23 of 43 routes last week, 7 targets, caught all of them, only 12 routes for Madison. And so I would think that Abdullah would be better in PPR formats. Of course, Madison, the bigger back, might get the short yardage and goal line work. But I would lean Abdullah.
Yeah, I have Abdullah ranked higher in the rankings just for all the reasons you laid out. But yes, I also have Abdullah hopefully nowhere near my lineups if I'm serious on making the fantasy finals. Yeah. Kyle, we aren't streaming Mac Jones, right? This isn't like obviously not in one quarterback leagues. But even like the super flex, 2 QB, there's been some chatter about Mac Jones, I'll say. There's been some chatter.
I have
many are saying.
Some are saying. Let's not go many. Let's go some are saying. Some are saying that the Raiders are a bad pass defense. Some are saying they have faced the 3rd highest pass rate over expected this year. Some are saying that they've given up the 9th most fantasy points. Those are all very positive indicators for an opposing quarterback.
Jones treated very unfairly.
Some are saying. I think in Superflex, worse quarterbacks have been started this year. I hope you got to the waiver wire quickest and pick up Michael Penix. He's a clear better start than a guy like Mac Jones this week. But, if you've been beaten up by the injury bug, I think he's in the top 24, Pat?
I have QB 27. Let's say this, Mac Jones or Aiden O'Connell?
Mac Jones.
I'm leaning Aiden.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's just slightly better weapons. Denny, end the show by playing the Brenton Strange hits. Just tell us, this is your life. This is your whole personality. Backup tight ends. Tell us what we need to know about Brenton Strange. We haven't not had much sicko tight end talk this year somehow.
Well, you banned it from the show, unfortunately. The Supreme Court told me I couldn't talk about it, but I will talk about Brenton Strange against the Raiders. He caught 11 of 12 targets last week, targeted on 28% of his routes, which is insane. He led the team comfortably in slot routes. So basically, Brenton Strange is operating as Jacksonville's primary slot guy, and that is not a bad gig to have if you are a tight end. He averaged a beautiful 4.5 air yards per target last week. It actually is going to make me cry here. And the Raiders are allowing the 4th most tight end receptions on the season. It's still strange season. I don't know what anybody would be thinking about just dropping this guy after last week. You got to keep playing him.
It's strange season. It's fantasy playoff season. We hope you survive and advance to the finals for Christmas week, week 17. We'll be here to talk about it. We'll be here to write about it. Of course, though, we're still focused on week 16. The funnel report comes out Friday. The regression files are out. Start 'em, sit 'em will be out. 32 stats are out. My rankings are out. I'm literally updating them as we speak during our show today. So for Denny, for Kyle, I'm Pat. Thanks for listening. Check out Denny at noon Eastern on Friday. And we'll be back Sunday night to break down the entire slate. Thank you so much for listening.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com. And I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched. Or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Rotoworld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.